Old Roller Nation, welcome to the show. Personal friend, second degree black belt, owner and coach at JM Modern Jiujitsu, Josh Mancuso. Josh, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming along.
Thanks for having me.
Super excited. I've been to your gym 3 or 4 times now in my travels for work, and it's always been such a cool and welcoming environment and a very high level environment. I will say, like it's a tough mat, to roll into, but always very friendly and very welcoming. And so I wanted to pass that along. My thanks for having that opportunity to train there and have a good time and obviously get some good training in.
Yeah, man, absolutely. It's that's when I think we actually get that a lot from everybody who comes through. Just we always get complimented on the culture, but also the mat toughness, which I think sometimes is a hard thing to strike. You know what I mean? In an overall culture, is that honestly being nice to someone, but still being able to really apply some good jiu-jitsu and be vicious.
Yeah, we want to get with it, but we want to do so in a way that is friendly. It's a hard, just like you
Like,
said, it's a tough balance, but you guys
yeah,
do it well there.
actually doing it. There's a lot.
I like that. So let's just for our listeners, give just a brief introduction, how you came to jiu-jitsu, how long you've been doing it, and
Sure.
then kind of your evolution from practitioner to coach, then to like business owner and that whole evolution there. So you can take a little bit of time with that.
Sure, man. So basically, I started in jiu-jitsu when I was into actually street bikes, motorcycles, and I had crashed my motorcycle, and my family kind of had like an intervention. We're like, listen, this thing has got to go. You're going to kill yourself, and so unhappily, I agreed because they were right, and so I found jiu-jitsu because I was really bored. I was overweight. I was never even really been in shape before. And so then we ended up going. I thought I saw The Ultimate Fighter, and I saw this.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to say that I'm a tough noob, if that's still a thing nowadays, because it's been like 20 years. But
Did you go out and buy the entire tap out lineup from your local retailer?
of course I did. Of course I did. I had to go through that
Yes.
like that. So yeah, I got into it with that, and I joined Gladiators Academy with Tim Crater, and that was just a straight up fight gym, and that's what things were back then. And so I learned a lot about the business there, and honestly, I loved my time there. I look back on it with fond memories, but I also learned like so many things that could have been done better. And Tim, actually, who I used to train under back in those days, he actually does his business completely different from that too. So he's learned as well. But from going through all those, it gave me an idea of how to run a business, which I would do later, And
Mm-hmm.
so I ended up staying with Tim for a long time, and just was under him, but basically was running the gym where I was at about an hour away, teaching the classes myself. Since basically blue belt, I've been the main instructor, which is which sucks, to be honest. Come in and out. Uh, Darren DeSalo, Andrew Saul, different guys like that, and they were great, but no one ever stuck around for any period of time longer than a year. And so it was just our main core guys, and we got along. And so eventually, as that grew, and I'm really blazing through it, but as that grew, I just felt like if I was making all the decisions, I was working for a UFC gym. And I felt like if I was making the decisions and I could act on what I wanted to do immediately, then I could really just do a whole new thing and really do a really good job with this jiu-jitsu thing. I saw it a very big dream in my eyes, but a very achievable dream. And because I mean, jiu-jitsu is so much fun. How can I have so much fun with this and the world not be on fire for it? Right? It's
Mm-hmm.
just crazy. Much fun. And so um, I decided to leave, and I opened up a gym inside a body shop, an auto mechanic body shop. And
Nice.
and it was rough. But we had outdoor hours and no parking, like 4 parking spots. But luckily, we had a bunch of policemen that trained with me, so they parked on the street illegally. So everybody else did. So we got away with it for a really long time. And the gym went really well, and then we were able to move into our new facility about a year later, and then now we've grown and grown and grown, and it's doing really well now. And but a lot of that is due to the culture, and I think, like you and I had talked about before, uh, a lot of that is due to the demographics that I go after, the type of people that we shoot for. Now, first of all, let me just say, we take anybody and everybody here.
Certainly.
We've really done a great job. One thing I'm proud of is that we really don't have a lot of the political and religious problems in here. Like, everybody gets along no matter what, no matter how their view is. And that's really rare. You don't see that outside of the jiu-jitsu mat. So it's something I'm very, very proud of. But that comes from selecting a good demographic. And the one that I target are typically going to be your older, not older, but your middle-aged male, like around 30 to 45 is like my ideal demographic of my student that I like, because of many reasons. One being they're more mature. They pay their bill on time, which is very important if you're going to run a gym. Things that you got to take seriously. And typically they will have understand how contracts work and how like agreements work and things like that. A lot of times when I go after adult or students, and I'm in a college town, so I deal with this, I typically have to deal with a lot of problems. And typically, if they're 25 years old, I typically deal with their parents still. So I try to avoid that if at all possible. And not only that, but when you deal with the older group, they typically honestly can afford to go to the big tournaments. And so I can bring a real good competition team, and they have a great, sense of we're all people on the mat. You know what I mean? Not quite as much to prove as the younger guys. And don't get me wrong, I love the younger guys, but they're going to come regardless. So I'm really going after that other demographic, and it's really worked out well for us.
That's so interesting to hear you say that, because I started jiu-jitsu at 35. I'm coming up on my 40th birthday. And anybody who's listening to this podcast has probably heard this 10,000 times and tired of hearing it. But I always try to tell our guests, the purpose of this podcast has been purely a selfish one. I want to listen to and learn from the smartest people who have been the biggest influences on me and people like me, so that I can have increase at the highest clip my skills, but also maintain my longevity, because I want to roll dangerously into my 65th birthday. I don't want to be a 65-year-old dude who's either off the mat or who is like, oh yeah, he knows some technique and he could flow roll or whatever. I want to be tough. Yeah. And so when you're saying that your marketing, the demographic that you primarily market toward is my demographic, that's fascinating. Can you talk a little bit more about how you came to that conclusion? Because like you gave some pretty good reasons, I think, based firstly on the business side, but then the maturity side and the culture side. I think, there's something, to be said for that. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah. I mean, well, luckily I am that age, I am almost 40. So obviously, I'm going to flock towards people that are similar to my peers. And so, but ultimately I've been doing this so long, and I've just been in the rooms, and I've found that we just typically have a much smoother time with that age. And I learned that years ago. And also, we don't do MMA. So we don't do any mixed martial arts, any striking, anything like that. So that's another big reason why I think we get the demographic that we get, so it kind of happens by intention, but also by how we've shaped the program. Because when we had an MMA program, it was much more of a younger crowd, because those guys want to fight and they really have something to prove. But we got rid of that, and it's really been tremendous for the business. That actually, we took off when that happened.
So
and that was why we keep those 35-year-olds. They're not getting beat up viciously. They're getting beat up technically.
That's interesting. You say that when you changed your marketing model to that demographic, that your marketing really took off, like your return on investment, I'm guessing, started to really change.
Right. Oh yeah. Well, and that's the thing. You have to keep trying new things and see what works for you. And I just like that demographic the best, because those young guys just give me so much crap. Constantly, man. So I just like dealing with people like that I just always don't have to worry about, and they're going to come train. Well, that's another crazy thing. I respect people who train consistently. That's the most important thing to me. It doesn't matter how good you are. It doesn't matter how whatever. Are you showing up and doing the work? That's the most important thing to me, and a student and a friend and a training partner. And these 35-year-olds outwork the 25-year-olds completely. There's not even a question. The 25-year-olds just have genetically gift. They're genetic, they still have it. You know what I mean? They're in their prime. But I like to train with people who like to train really hard and like to train a lot. And that's typically going to be the older guys. They're going to show up. They're never going to miss practice. Those sorts of things. Then they're coaching.
I can say that for myself. And one thing that this podcast is not is a brag board for me.
Sure.
It's probably been much to my wife's chagrin, but if I have an evening off and my body will allow it, I'm going to train. Like, it's not even a question of what am I? Is there something else I could be doing? It's like, that's the thing that I'm doing. I've discovered this is maybe a fatherhood thing. When I was young, I had all kinds of hobbies, all kinds of stuff that I like to get into. And then once you have kids, you kind of are allowed one, and you just pour everything into it. And jiu-jitsu is mine. And I'm guessing there's a whole lot of folks a lot like me in that same scenario.
Yeah, man, there really is. Like right now, we're doing some stuff with the gym where we're not supposed to be open right now, and we're not open, but I am allowing like small groups to train right now and stuff like that. And a lot of these guys are in that demographic. That's their one thing. They're dying to do it. You know what I mean? And like, so at least we're coming up with a system to get those guys in here, because I feel so bad for them, and they want to train. I'm getting messages constantly going like, man, open the gym. So at least we're getting them back on the mat. That's something that's important to me. And honestly, is they're scared. Their wives are scared. Obviously everything going on, but honestly, they're also scared for their mental health, because they're telling these guys finally, okay, go train.
Yeah. Well, now here's a question that I hate to circle back and kind of re-segue, but you had talked about some of the cultural things within your gym being better with that demographic. What is the culture? What are the main cultural key points, with consistency obviously being one? What are you looking for on your mat culture that you feel like this demographic really does a good job of helping you provide?
I mean, we need people to help each other. That's the main thing. We need to keep it competitive, but honestly, that's why I like to have a competition-based team. I really like to push my guys to compete, because they understand that that's where the competition is. The competition isn't with, when I have Eric Pozo here every day, do we beat the crap out of each other? Absolutely. But is that the goal of every one of our training? No, we're getting better. You've heard this 1,000 times, you use your training partners in a proper way. And I think by doing it that way, that's, you'll get better results like that. And everybody has a good mat culture of helping each other rather than destroying each other. Like, for instance, one of my other training partners, John Meyer, and Eric too, I would never compete against these guys, simply because if I was to compete against these guys, I would train with them differently, and it would make our culture different. So they're here to make me better. So if I do something with them and it doesn't work very well, I need to keep doing that and get better at it, or I'm never getting any better. And so as long as we keep that as the goal, it tends to work great. Now, does that mean everybody here competes? No, about 10% of the people compete, but we're all gears in this big machine. You know what I mean? And they feel really great when they can look at the screen and watch, Jessica go win a world championship, or Ashley go win a world championship, or, Eric go win Brazilian nationals, and all this different stuff. So that's one part of the culture that works really well, and that helps by being competitors. And people can whine and bitch and complain about not wanting to see closeouts and divisions and stuff like that. But the reality is, if we didn't close out those divisions and not compete against each other, we wouldn't have the same culture that we have right now. So we are truly a team, and that doesn't mean we don't beat the crap out of each other, but the goal is to win as a team. And we've done that, and we've shown that we can do that. And we dominated the local competitions here before all this crap hit. And that isn't just to win competitions. That's part of our culture. It's just as essential as showing up to train, if we want to have that consistency. I'm hoping we get back to that real soon.
Well, I think that, like, no matter what, the virus will run its course. We don't know what the timeline on it is, but we are going to get the chance to come back. And I don't have any clue about how it's going to play out. I only know that with the passionate group that we have, I've done a lot of things in my life, and I haven't done a lot of things where universally, if somebody stuck around for 3 months, they were addicted. So it's gonna come back. That's just reality.
I think the cool thing about jiu-jitsu and why it's impossible to keep down is, everyone thinks that they're special, but really we're a lot of us are the same. We're predictable, things like that. That's why marketing works. That's why advertising works. And I think that when I think about jiu-jitsu, okay, so as a kid growing up and as a young adult, I would do anything to get to the end result as easy as possible. But it's jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu was the one thing that I was like, I'm not going to skip anything. I'm going to do this the right way. I'm going to, give it my all. And so if I'm that passionate about it, then I know other people are going to be dying for it too. So I think that that's not special to me. It's special to the sport. And so for that, I think people are going to come back. Will some people not? Yes. I think that some people are going to say, this isn't for me. I'm scared of this. This is the new normal. And
Sure.
but I think the majority will come back. And I think that the new people will still come in. So.
Well, now a question that you kind of gave me there when you were talking about when we're talking about the idea of like closing out divisions and things like that, you said if you didn't do that, it would change the way that you train, and that
Yes.
when you train with your partners, you're seeking out challenges. You're seeking out spots where you can get stuck or where you can get beaten. And one of the concepts that over and over the coaches that we've interviewed and the even the physical therapists have talked about this, is that if you just go to war, you will get pretty good at the thing that you're good at in that war. But if somebody gets you out of it, you're toast. Secondly, yes, you run a higher risk of injury by doing that because you're always doing the exact same thing. Yep. Always working in the same plane. So talk a little bit about your training and how do you find those opportunities to fail and to improve, so to speak?
Well, I'm lucky because I understand that all my students are spoiled. They're spoiled rotten, right? They have all they're so used to it. I'm so jealous of them. They got it set. But the rest of us, back when I started, I would go train at Tim Crater's, an hour away just to get good training. I go train over there. Or Derek Bro was another guy who was a purple belt back then, and I would drive 2 hours to go train with him and Gabe Barahona. And so I would make these big long trips to train with purple belts and like maybe a black belt if I was really lucky. So, now I have 10 black belts in here all the time. You know what I mean? So now I don't have I understand how precious that time is. So I've learned how to use it effectively from a long time ago. If I was just in here, came up like that, I don't know if I would be able to appreciate it so easily. I'd probably get told this and be like, oh yeah, one ear, not the other. But as far as the training aspect goes, when I train, like, everybody's different, right? So obviously Eric and I know each other's games very well. Same thing with all of my black belt training partners. And so when I go with those guys, I try my best to it's never an ego measuring contest.
Right.
I'm trying to get better, and I'm okay with that because if I got to eat shit, I don't have to do it often. So I can do it here. It's not going to make me upset. I know some guys that get really, really frustrated when they get smoked or tapped out or whatever. And it just doesn't bother me. I'm okay with it. It motivates me. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And if it's caught by some purple belt or blue belt, oh, that's going to fire me up. But if I get caught by a black belt, now we're trying some stuff, that's supposed to happen. You know what I mean? The other belts, I made a mistake. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of how I approach it. And we train a lot. So if I train like that every session, I'm 40 years old. There's just no way I can maintain that. I look at Formiga sometimes and I'm like, man, how do you do it? But he's about 4 or 5 years younger than me. But man, it's crazy. But that's how I approach my training for the most part. And right now it's really cool. We're in a mode. The one good thing about not having tournaments coming up has been awesome because I haven't taken a day off of training since any of this started. So just for that being, it gave me a great opportunity to study new positions and work on things that I was not very good at. So during this whole thing, my wrestling has gotten extremely night and day better. So my wrestling's better. I'm working a new guard, all this stuff because there's no tournaments coming up. I'm able to focus on positions like I used to do when I was like a purple belt. So it's been a lot of fun in that regard. But that's like a lot of mumbo jumbo, but that's kind of how I approach my training.
No, that's not mumbo jumbo at all. That's exciting. And I think you're passing on a valuable methodology for somebody who wants to, let's say you're another thing that this podcast is for is like, let's say you're training at a small gym where you got to drive that 2 hours to find a purple belt. Well, now how do you get the best training that you can get out of that environment? You only got 3 training partners. You're not getting a whole lot of different looks. Well, you got to find ways to create those looks yourself, because we all know that there are a contingent of people who they're going to play their game, and that's fine. How are you going to take them out of it and put yourself in a place where you're uncomfortable so that you can grow in that place? You got to take your training.
If you run into a training partner like that and they are very adamant about playing that one game, that's a great opportunity for me to get good at beating that one game. You know what I mean? So I'll even take that as, because one thing that I will say is sometimes I have the intention of working on something, but then you go with somebody and it's just, if I keep trying to, because I don't want to tell them what I'm working on, because then it just changes the dynamic of what I'm doing. Sure. But if I'm wanting to work on something, but the positions are just not showing up and they keep putting me somewhere, then I need to make an adjustment during that training to do what they're doing. If it's a footlock guy, I got to play footlocks. If it's a lasso guy, I got to play lasso. If it's a wrestle guy, I need to wrestle him. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Yeah, and I like what you're saying there, because let's say you're trying to get, like you want to work your smash passing, but somebody's just really good at framing with their feet and you're never getting in. Well, now they've just shown you need to work on your ability to get inside. Like, they've given you the training stimulus. It might not be the one that you wanted, but it might be the one that you needed.
It might be frustrating, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it sounds like marriage.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So kind of to move on, one of the things that the 2 other elements, like we've talked about culture, and like I said, I've experienced the culture at JM, and I personally got a lot out of it. It's definitely a place that if I was around Baton Rouge, I would want to train there. I'd have to drive 13 hours to do it, so I'm gonna have to refrain.
I'm glad we have you, Jan.
Absolutely, but the 2 other elements that we see a lot of in these interviews that come up is different people have different coaches and practitioners have different relationships and ratios of live rolling, positional sparring, and drilling. And so kind of wanted to get your take on, as someone ages, do you see any need for changing in that ratio from 25 to 45 to 55 and up?
Yeah. You know what, man? I would say this. I've done all the different stuff. I've drilled a bunch. I've just rolled for a while. I've done all of it. It's all effective, right? It's all good. And I don't think it's as age dependent as people would think. I think it's more mentality based. So I think instead of saying like, hey, I'm older, I need to be doing more drilling, it's really not accurate. You should really just do what your body feels like that day. So instead of saying like, I'm post 40, I need to change my training this way, you just say like, no, it's Monday and I feel like this, I need to change my training in this way. You know what I mean? That's the way
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, that's the way I like to look at it.
So if it's a Thursday and you've had 3 days of hard rolls going into it, maybe it's a drilling day.
Yes, exactly.
Specifically,
your partner. Sometimes I'll go with a partner who's much lighter than me or not nearly as experienced, and so that roll is going to be a drill for me, even though we're rolling live.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. You're using the training opportunities based on what your body's willing to give for that day. If you go in there like a raging bull, then it's going to be a wrestling day. And
yeah, we're not all Gordon Ryan. We're not all in this like peak physical condition that can handle that type of brutality, especially once you start aging. You know what I mean? As much as I would like to be, it's just the reality isn't there. We're older.
I also think that if you're still getting better, we call that maybe training smarter versus training harder. You want to train hard when you can, and then train smart when you need to. Like there's nothing wrong with that.
No, I mean, that's what I feel like I've been very good at, is studying positions. You know what I mean? Like actually learning the concepts behind them. That's been really beneficial for me. And I think that's why I was able to get my black belt in a pretty quick amount of time. That helped me a lot. That's what my focus was. My focus was never on becoming a great athlete. It was always becoming a good practitioner. And then once I felt like I had reached a certain level and I had got my black belt, I really focused on, now let's get in shape and physical conditioning as well as, the technical ability. And so now I feel like I've reached a really good balance of the two. And now I'm kind of back on the technical ability. So it always changes, you know what I mean? And I wouldn't say it's indicative of age or anything like that.
You're just trying to find what your game needs and then find a way to support it.
No, it's what my game needs. That's a funny thing too. A lot of instructors will tell their students what they should be doing, and I will tell them that. But also at the same time, I want them to do what they want to do. What's exciting to you that day? Like what's going to keep you training? What makes you want to do it? If you want to do barambolos all day long and your De La Hiva sucks, ultimately, do it. You know what I mean? Because it's going to keep you on the mat. It's going to keep you training. It's going to keep you doing jiu-jitsu. And so the more you are on that mat, the better you're going to get. So I don't fight too much with stuff like that. More encouraging.
Yeah, no, and I get what you're saying in regard to earlier. What I guess what I was saying is like you came to a bit of technical understanding, and then you realized that the element that was holding you back was being not in the shape that you needed to be to demonstrate that ability. So you said, I'm gonna up my strength and conditioning so that my athleticism meets my game.
Exactly.
And then when you're talking about that idea of the encouraging a student to do what excites them, that reminds me of something that Ryan Hall talked about in game development. And he said that your training partners are basically going to drive your game. That people are going to tell you should learn fundamentals, or you should learn this, or you should learn that. He's like, learn whatever you think is cool, because that will bring you back. And your training partners, if you suck at it, they're going to beat you up with it, and then you're going to get either better at it, or you're going to move on. Yeah. So either way, your training partners will educate you about what you need to be working on.
Yep, that's true. Totally true. If anybody knows, it's Ryan Hall. He's definitely been around the block.
Yeah, not a dumb guy. We hope to have him on the show at some point, but I'll fanboy out like real hard, so it'll be embarrassing.
You should have some time. I don't think he's fought in a while.
Yeah, it's so funny his way of calling people out. His Instagram is hysterical to me. I here I am fanboying about him, like that's so embarrassing.
Man, I've learned a lot of jiu-jitsu from Ryan Hall DVDs. A lot.
As have I. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I can't say anything. Guy's got amazing skills. Amazing. I wish I would love to actually see him do a match with like Gary Tone, and I would love to see that, man. That's one I would really, really like to see.
Yeah, I mean they both have such a dynamic game and play some very interesting positions. I think they would be fun to watch.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, to kind of skate on from the fanboying, I apologize for devolving into that. That's
fanboy too.
We talked about culture, and we've talked about how to approach the mat, and what your day of training might look like versus a day where you feel super refreshed or like a little bit beat up. Let's talk. You said that you spent some time trying to up your being in shape. What kind of strength and conditioning regimen do you like to maintain, and is that something that you have evolved or changed over time?
So my strength and conditioning basically comes from I just do more jiu-jitsu. I try to lift, and I do lift occasionally, but my consistency with lifting is terrible because I just don't like it. It's not fun to me. My girlfriend Ashley, she works out like a beast, but me, I struggle with it. But I honestly just like to turn it up in training and I train a lot too. So the reality is, like, I'm training twice a day at my age. It's hard to also fit in a lifting program. But I say this, I'm gonna do it. You know what I mean? That's what I always say. It's important. You know what I mean? I tell everybody they should do it. So I do here and there. I'm definitely just not as consistent as I should be. And what I do is basic stuff. When I'm in there, I'm doing basic bench deadlift and the basic stuff, because essentially I'm doing so much work on the mat that I only need like the horsepower stuff, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
So when I do, I lift heavy and then just leave it at that. But diet's a lot to do with it. Our diet's good, and I feel like that's a big part of my conditioning and everything.
One thing that I'll recommend to you, if you're definitely looking at the strength and conditioning and the diet element, we recorded an episode with James Escaloni that's on YouTube. He's a doctor of physical therapy, and
Okay.
he talked about how diet and blood sugar maintenance will affect your joint suppleness as we age. And he basically laid out the case for we can extend the, I don't want to say longevity, I'm going to say the youth of our tendons and ligaments longer by having an appropriate diet. And so that was a really I've completely changed the way that I eat based on what he said, because I want my joints to be really strong for me at 55 and 60.
Well, I mean, almost, yeah, essentially. I almost wonder if I'm doing the right. That's why I'm doing good on injuries. I wonder if I'm eating right, and that's playing over. I need to check that out for sure.
Well, you don't look like a fat turd. You do look like a turd, but
I used to be real overweight, but not anymore. I don't. It's never gonna happen again. I don't want to ever go back to that life again. Thank you.
I'm your guy.
Dude, everybody's big after this quarantine, man. I've run into a few people. That's another reason jiu-jitsu is going to bounce back, because everybody's going to need to lose weight. All my friends here.
I've a lot of the people that I've interviewed, and we're talking professionals and coaches, and people that typically were on the mat 6 or 7 days a week, have said like within 2 weeks they had gained 10 pounds because they were eating like they were training, all day every day, and they had to shift some stuff up.
Yep.
I kind of went the opposite way. I became like a little bit worked up and was having a hard time eating, so I've actually lost a little bit of weight, but that's not due to like improved diet per se. It's just like I'm just not as hungry because I'm like this is a stressful time.
Oh, dude, trust me, I've been fighting that myself. Trust. I'm happy now. Because I'm in my gym and there's people here. That's why I'm happy, to be honest. When this place is empty, those smiles out of me, man. I like my gym to be full, and so we got a few people in here. That's makes it fun again.
Yeah, I definitely, once again, going back to that culture, like the culture that you maintain is one where I think it would be pretty easy to be happy on the mats there. That's a hard thing to have taken from you for any length of time.
Tell me about it. I've had so many people reach out and be like, man, they just need it. I can tell they need it. I'm not going to get into their personal stories, but they need it. It's just mental health.
So moving on to kind of, like we're getting kind of close to like wrapping things up, and I don't want to keep you because you've really covered a lot of the stuff that we wanted to in a way that was very elegant. I'm really impressed that like I didn't even send you my outline, which usually I get the chance to do, and you're just like bang, bang, bang. I love it.
I love jiu-jitsu. This is the one thing, if you put me in front of 500 people and told me to talk about anything, I would be like, stumbling on my words. If you put me up there and talk about jiu-jitsu, I'm good, man. I can talk about that all day long.
That's an exciting thing. I'm going to make sure that you get the chance to do that.
Awesome.
So we have a new section of the podcast, and we tried it last night for the first time. And so you'll be number 2, and we call it 3 up, 3 down. So just like with Reddit, you get the up votes and the down votes, right? If you could go back into your training, your coaching, your business, and look at the 3 things that you did that had the biggest effect, that if someone was starting out, if they did those 3 things, it would help them immensely. So this is like the 3 that you're glad that you did, or that you've seen someone else do that you adopted. And then the opposite of that would be 3 down, 3 things that you screwed up and you wish you did not do. So give us your take on that.
Okay. This is a tricky one. So luckily, I'll just preface this with, I worked teaching jiu-jitsu for many years before opening a school, so I was able to make a lot of mistakes, right? So I would say, as far as from a business perspective, opening up, I would make sure that you do things that your clients want, that the majority want, rather than what you want. You have to make sure that if you're a leader, you do what they want, not what you want. I would also say that don't forget marketing. It's not, it's okay. You have to do it. If you're going to be a business owner, you have to market yourself. You have to push your brand. You have to build your brand. You have to spend money to make this happen. There's just no way around it. So as much as people think they're throwing away money when they're spending it on ads or something like that, it's very important that you do that. And then thirdly, I would say very important, surround yourself with good people who, other business owners, other gym owners, and that you can talk to, because this is a very stressful life. As beautiful it is and as wonderful it is, it comes with some very highs and some very big lows, because there's so much responsibility that lands on your shoulders. So if you're the type of person that takes that seriously, then of course it's going to affect you. So, there's a lot of that. So take that seriously. And it's good to have other people that you can bounce things off of. Clay Hance, Roy Delgado, Marcos Torregrosa, like Anthony Mitchell, Greg Allen, a lot of those guys, I'm able to talk to them, and we can, help each other. And even if we, we're in the same business, we may not even be on the same jiu-jitsu team, but we're on the same team, which is jiu-jitsu ownership, jiu-jitsu gym ownership. So that's my top 3 that you should. Things you shouldn't do. It's very,
and these have
very,
to be that you did.
Okay, no problem. No problem. Let's see. Things that I've done that I shouldn't do. Get involved in anybody's business outside of your doors. If you are a jiu-jitsu coach, anything that happens outside your doors is not your business. Don't get involved in it. And a lot of times I actually lost a really high-level student, 2 high-level students over this, because they felt like I should have got involved in something that happened outside the gym with another student. And I just have the policy of, it's just, if it happens outside the gym, it's not me. If there's something serious, you need to call the police. It's not, I am a gym owner and a jiu-jitsu coach. I can't police everybody's behavior, and I can't begin to start that because I'm not qualified and I'm not perfect, so that's one that I've done before, and I've learned a different way. What else have I done? Oh man, there's probably so many things that I've done wrong. God. Man, let me think about that for a second. I try not to focus on the bad things, man.
I get that,
but it's there's definitely more. I've made so many mistakes, man. I'll tell you. I'll tell you one. When you assume a spot of leadership, you got to start really quieting your opinions. You know what I mean? That's something been very, very hard to do over the years, because I'm a very talkative, extroverted guy. So I have to learn to be quiet and use some self-control. And that's a really tough one. And I've made every mistake in the book on that one. And to carry that on into my third one, I would say the biggest mistake that I made in jiu-jitsu goes along with that. I think when I was a purple belt, blue belt, and a brown belt, my instructor was an hour away from me. And I used to I felt that I needed to be heard and able to be noticed. I wanted to be a black belt, but I also wanted to be noticed, So I was out there competing as much as I could, but I was also very vocal in the community. And sometimes that rubbed people the wrong way. And there's some relationships that I probably tarnished out of just being an asshole, a younger asshole that like Gordon Ryan's going to learn later on. He's going to want these people to be his friends. And luckily, most of those situations now I've been able to grow from, and those relationships are good again. But there's still some people that have never met me that hate my guts, you know what I mean? Because of maybe something that I said when I was a blue belt or purple belt that they heard about, So it's just, it's one of those things that make sure that you're friendly to all your competitors, all your other gyms in the area. They're not your enemy. They love the same thing that you love, and they just do it their way, and it's different from your way, and that's good. And this COVID-19 thing, I have 3 or 4 other gyms in town. I hope they all survive. I even sent them all text messages to ask them if they needed anything, because by them going out of business, it doesn't help me. We need jiu-jitsu to grow. That's how we're going to grow this sport. There's this sense of scarcity in the industry, in all industries really, where they're going to get all the people. Well, guess what? There's a lot of people in this city. They're not all in JM Jiu-Jitsu. They're not all anywhere. So there's just no reason for this combativeness. There needs to be healthy rivalries. So it's a long-winded answer, but basically, don't ruin healthy rivalries by making them negative.
I think that's a very beautiful note, because we've talked about how competition in a way drives the culture within your gym. And that healthy competition makes everyone want to be better. And it would make sense that healthy competition within the gym, if it works there, then it also would work outside the gym as well. So if you're making the community healthy, then
Yes.
a healthy community will grow, and a toxic community will probably dry up.
Right. Ultimately, if somebody sees one of my competitors' ads or whatever, they're gonna look up jiu-jitsu. And so there's only 4 or 5 places in town. They're gonna probably check me. They might check me out. Who knows? And I might drive some business to them. But you know what? There's different places for everybody, and not everybody fits at the right place. So I'm glad there's more of that. And then, and I think as we get older, a lot of us, because jiu-jitsu is still a young sport, me and one of the guys around here, Raphael Elwanger, we had a tumultuous relationship for many years. And then now we get along really, really well, and we work together and on different projects and stuff like that, because we both kind of swallowed our pride, and him more than me, because who am I? This guy's been a black belt forever, so it's nice to be able to work with those people now.
Well, I think that goes right back to what you were saying too about trying to find someone that challenges you. Like if you're in a situation where someone can put you in a place that's uncomfortable but will make you grow, there's value to that. And that's not just on the mat. We often try to say that jiu-jitsu is life, and that might be an element of it. Is that being able to accept a challenge both in a relationship and like within your career and all those different things, and just say, I'm going to figure this position out.
Exactly.
Well, Josh, it's been just an absolute thrill to talk to you, and just for anybody who's listening that's doing audio only, Josh is not in any way overweight. When I said he didn't look like a fat turd, that was me being a sarcastic a-hole. So he looks like he spends a lot of time in the gym, actually. Like, just
Man,
and here I am.
This whole quarantine, I have been spending my time with a hammer, nail, and paintbrush. That's what I've been doing. And finally, we're done, and I'm so happy with it.
Well, it's working. I'm man crushing on you real hard here. So,
well, hopefully see you soon. I'd love to have you.
Obviously, any chance that I get to make it down your way, I'll be dropping in. If anybody else wants to get some time on the mat with you, how can they look up JM Modern Jiu-Jitsu and Josh Mancuso?
Man, you can look me up on Facebook or Instagram at JM Modern JJ. Either of those, I'll respond to most all messages, or send it to, or look on our website and call the number, or just show up.
Well, we can definitely. That's so awesome. Well, Josh, thank you so much for your time and your insight. I think you've passed on a lot of great ideas for my fellow old rollers, and you're a different case for us, because a lot of times we've gone with people who are talking a lot about just purely training, and you've talked a lot about the business side of it too. And to be perfectly honest, there are going to be some people that are listening to this that are going to be either business owners now or in the future. And some of the insights that you handed off were really, really awesome, and I think very useful.
One quick thing that I'll mention, if anybody's interested, I actually have a Facebook group that's for businesses, but the difference is I don't charge any money for it. And I found that the industry of martial arts marketing isn't something that I really am fond of. And I feel like it gets a bad rap in gyms overall. And I feel like there's a lot of marketing tactics and things that aren't very, I don't feel like they have a lot of they're not ethical, in my opinion. There are a lot of tricks and years and things like that. So I actually have a group on Facebook called the No BS Business Group, BJJ Business Group. So if anybody looks that up and wants to join that, just know that we're in there, and it's a community of business owners that all help each other. And I'm very focused on that. And I have a history in sales and things like that. So I think that's why I'm doing okay. And I've applied all those things that I've learned over the years. But if anybody's interested in that, I'd be happy to help. I don't charge anybody money. I just want to see jiu-jitsu grow and be the best it can possibly be. That's it. That's my motivation.
Well, I think that's just a beautiful sentiment. We want to see that too at the Old Rollers podcast. That's our goal. We want to, and that goes for any grappling sport, because you can grapple into your old age. It's kind of harder to box or kickbox, at 65. but
Literally.
anybody can get out and get on the mat and wrestle and tussle it up. So,
Yes.
once again, thank you so much. Like I said, for your time and your insights. You really shared a lot of awesome information, and I think my fellow old rollers are going to be really happy to hear it.
Awesome, man. Well, look, if you ever just hit me up, we'll do it again sometime.
Count on it, brother. Wishing you luck and the very best.
Thanks, man. Good talking to you.